In today's video, I've got 5 facts about Kiritsugu Emiya from the Fate series. I'll be covering his assassination abilities, his deadly Thompson contender, and how he can manipulate time as an average mage, and of course, much more. But hey, if you're new here, why not join the 414 community by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out. And just to add that this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't finished Fate Zero or possibly Fate Stay Night, then there will be spoilers, so you've been warned. Anyway, with that being said, let's roll intro and get straight into the video. Kiritsugu Emiya is a freelancer, infamously known as the Mage's Killer, but who was he? He was Iris Veil von Einsburn's husband, father to Elias Veil von Einsburn, and Shiro Emiya's adoptive father. Kiritsugu was a master during the Fourth Grail War, and his servant was none other than Saber, aka Artoria Pendragon. Kiritsugu is Japanese and stands at 175 centimeters tall, which makes him 5'7" and weighs 147 pounds. His birthday is on November the 11th, which makes him a Scorpio. As for Kiritsugu's appearance, he comes across as shut off and has a very cold demeanor. He has spiked black hair and black-grey eyes that always have a dead or vacant look to them. Kiritsugu's attire has a black theme. He's always dressed in a 3-piece black suit with a dark grey shirt. Comboed with this is the classic black trench coat. Who knows, but maybe Kiritsugu's just trying to pull off that goth kid vibe. Of course, the addition of the cigarette and his personality seem to reflect this point even more. Just kidding anyway. I really like his look and character for that matter. I think he's actually my favourite master from the franchise, but who's yours? Let me know in the comments. Cool little fact just to finish this one off, but Takashi Takeuchi, artist, character designer, and co-founder of Type Moon, actually felt that the design for the young Kiritsugu Emiya looks like he should be a protagonist in a shonen manga. And I can see what he means. What do you think? When it comes to Kiritsugu's abilities, as a mage, you could say that he was classed as average. This of course was all down to the training or lack of training from his father in his youth, which I'll get to in another fact. Where he does shine, of course, is in assassination. With his infamous title, the Mage's Killer, the Mages Association didn't rate him high enough as a mage, but did see him as someone useful due to his notorious ways of taking out higher ranked mages, or I guess you could say problems. His abilities were, just that great. I mean, there had been many incidents such as missing persons, accidents, or tragedies that had resulted in the death or deaths of other mages that were actually just Kiritsugu's handiwork. And when it comes to his magecraft ability, he treated what he could do as just another tool at his disposal, whereas other mages would dedicate themselves to studying its arts. Kiritsugu was very good at telling the difference between whether someone was just a normal person or actually a mage. This is because he is very familiar with how, the magic circuits work and has learned to track the current state of a mage through heat distribution. To actually physically see this, he would look at the thermal output of a heat detecting scope. Pretty awesome stuff, really. To add, Kiritsugu also had a knack for breaking through bounded fields. As an example, he was able to penetrate the strong bounded field surrounding the Tosaka residence in just 3 hours. Some of these fields, or security systems, could take up to a year to break, but because he tends to do things by means other than magecraft, he has the advantage here. And, of course, if there is one man who can turn the tide of advantage in their favour, it was certainly Kiritsugu Emiya for sure. So I've touched on the fact that as a mage he was considered average, but let's not forget that he was actually able to summon Saber as his servant for the Grail War, and as we know, the Saber class is considered one of the most powerful to have. You could argue, and to be honest, I'm sure Kiritsugu himself would agree, that an assassin or caster class would have suited his way of fighting much better. Obviously, Kiritsugu had much more of a strike from the dark while their back is turned, anything for the win kind of approach, whereas Artoria's code was one of chivalry and fighting her opponents fair and head on. As a master, Kiritsugu sure got a lot out of Saber's ability, as shown by her parameters or servant stats. Here they are, just so you can see. So Artoria's stats were Strength a B rank, Endurance an A rank, Agility an A, Mana once again an A rank, Luck, or Unlucky So, was a D rank, and Noble Phantasm was an A++ rank. So it proves that though thought of as an average mage, Kiritsugu certainly had a good understanding of magecraft, otherwise her stats would have been much more like how they were in the 5th Grail War under Shiro, though Artoria did have a much better relationship with Shiro. I'll leave a link in the cards now to my Saber video anyway, so you can check out all the different stats, etc. Now, back to Kiritsuku. As I mentioned, Kiritsuku favours ways other than Magecraft to win his battles, but it's actually a combination of a few things. 3, actually. So it's no secret that he favours modern technology as his main fighting force. He'll set traps and will scheme his way to victory, no matter how dirty the plan. What he does here is combine Magecraft with this modern technology. This gives him the edge, but there is one more vital component to this formula which makes Kiritsuku a foe to be feared. This final component, what I think Kiritsuku excels at is his ability to read a person and their weaknesses, and then instantly come up with a strategy to overcome them. This obviously has come, from experience, but at the same time, it's just something he has a knack for. Like a hunter, Kiritsuku waits until he finds the weak spot to his prey, which to many mages is the same thing, which is their overconfidence. These mages are so confident in their own abilities that they have convinced themselves that anything other than Magecraft is going to be useless against them, and that mage has to at least be as skilled as them to cause a problem. Though it is worth pointing out that there are a couple of mages that Kiritsuku would refer to as formidable enemies that were, definitely not easy to take out compared to others. Now, before we move on to his equipment, I've been barking on about how Kiritsuku is considered an average mage. This obviously is all just down to the fact that he doesn't care to study it and will only see interest in the subject if he can use it as a tool. He did find and use one ability which, was pretty badass. That ability was innate time control. This was a type of bounded field that separated the passage of time from what was outside of the field. This time adjustment only really applied to a quick burst ahead into the future, so turning back time was something he couldn't do. This technique obviously takes a lot of magical energy and time to pull off. This is due to the fact that Kiritsuku would, have to consider the size of this bounded field and how much time, would had to have been modified. Because of these two factors, it did mean that using this in a situation where he would have to strategize and act quickly would be useless to him. Like mentioned, Kiritsuku would need time to prepare and strategize beforehand. However, Kiritsuku, being Kiritsuku, managed to find a way to make this ability, useful to him in combat. Instead of creating a large bounded field, he applied the effects of this ability into a very small field that only affected him. Doing this will have no effect to others or the surroundings, but what it can do is allow Kiritsuku to adjust his body and movements for a few seconds at a time. This ability was called Time Alter. He would chant its name to activate it, followed by the speed he wishes to apply. He can also chant Excel, which will obviously speed him up, and then Stagnate, which, as you can guess, slows him down. If at any time he wants to stop this ability, he will simply chant Release Alter. The most often used version of this is Time Alter Double Excel. This allows him to move faster than the human eyes. This ability causes Kiritsuku's blood flow, metabolism, and muscle movement to speed up. Doing this means he is able to excel his physical and reaction skills far beyond a normal human's limits and acts as his greatest defense during battle. Now, of course, doing this is not good for Kiritsuku's body. He's effectively pushing his body beyond its natural limits, but because he had possession of Avalon at the time, providing extreme regeneration, Kiritsuku is able to take his ability even further. He can use a triple Excel or even quadruple the speed, which is called Square Excel. Pushing this ability, as you can guess, is extremely dangerous and will only be used in the most desperate of circumstances. Speeding up time that much causes his body to almost shut down. For example, his heartbeat is slowed down to the point where he can't even feel it. Breathing becomes lagged, his metabolism is reduced so much that his body temperature significantly drops to that of room temperature. As well as this, his cornea receives 3 times as much light, meaning his field of vision is pretty much just a blur of light, and finally, of course, his hearing is dramatically dulled too. Is the risk worth the payoff is what you'd have to ask yourself here. Okay, so I've talked about how Kiritsuku preferred modern technology as his, preferred choice of fighting, obviously combined with some magecraft, but, what exactly is this guy packing? Kiritsuku was packing various amounts of firearms, plastic explosives, hand grenades, smoke grenades, stun grenades, landmines. The guy's, basically just a badass. What he'd do with this commando-like setup is set these various weapons up as traps using tripwires, hidden fuses, or even just setting up a detonation system via his mobile phone. But anyway, Kiritsugu had three main firearms. The first was the Calico M950. This was a submachine gun that he would use as a sidearm. Though this large handgun looked more like a toy than a real weapon, it had a unique magazine that would hold up to 50 rounds to be fired at a rate of 700 rounds per minute. It was also equipped with a sound suppressor, vertical foregrip, and laser sight. Pretty cool, right? Then there was the Walther WA-2000. This was the best of the best when it came to sniper rifles. It was the very latest model, super heavyweight and semi-automatic. It's said to have cost around $12,000, and it was only one of 176 units to ever be made or produced. Its range can reach up to 1,000 meters, which I'm not even going to try to convert into miles because, I ballsed that up in my Archer video. Pretty funny, to be fair, looking back, but links in the cards now if you want to check that out and leave a comment about how stupid I am. Finally, Kiritsugu's Thompson Contender. This is the firearm that allows him to be the infamous mage killer or mage's killer. Without this weapon, he would have certainly had a very hard time indeed. No matter Kiritsugu's skill level, saying that, I'm certain Kiritsugu would have, still been able to hold his ground, but with this weapon, it makes him someone mages should fear. This weapon is a one-of-a-kind that cannot just be bought anywhere. This weapon is said to represent Kiritsugu as a mage and could not be used by anyone but him. This was Kiritsugu Emiya's Mystic Code, which is basically a support weapon for a mage, usually in the form of like a magical artifact. Kiritsugu used this single-shot firearm with what are known as origin bullets. These bullets, were pretty special. They were made by cutting off Kiritsugu's first and second ribs on both sides. They were then extracted from his body, ground to dust, and then using Magecraft, condensing some of Kiritsugu's own soul and his origin, which was severing and binding, into them. In total, 66 bullets were made. Kiritsugu had used 38 of these bullets before his epic battle against Kotomine. And awesomely enough, not a single one of these bullets had been wasted. But what do these bullets do, you may ask? What these bullets do to a mage is pretty much short-circuit their magical circuits, rendering them permanently useless. Not just the magic circuits, but, the very nerves in the body from where the bullet struck were also unable to regenerate, meaning that part of the body, just as the magic circuits, would never be able to properly function the same way it once did. Another cool thing about these bullets is that they deal more destructive damage to the more powerful mages. This is because it turns mana into damage. So, of course, if Kiritsugu came up against a mage with a very high mana count, then they would sustain a huge vital blow, whereas if the mage had a small mana count, they'd only receive a small amount of damage. But how did it do this? I mentioned Kiritsugu's origin, severing and binding, and, it did just that. Once the bullet entered the body, the severing aspect would cause the mana to ignore its normal paths along the mage's magic circuits, causing the mana to just flow in a very chaotic manner. Then the binding aspects comes into play. Once the mage's mana is running wild all over the place, their circuits would be bended or, fixed together in a way that made them completely useless, meaning that the mage was now unable to use Magecraft. Pretty awesome stuff, really. On to the voice behind Kiritsugu. He's had many voice actors here, so let's kick this off with Kiritsugu's Japanese voice actor is Rikiya Koyama. He has voiced other characters such as Yamato in Naruto Shippuden, Coyote Stark from Bleach, Kagatani Hiroko in Black Bullet, Klaus von Reinhardt from Blood Blockade Battlefront, and many more. Young Kiritsugu's Japanese voice actor is Miyu Irano. He has voiced other characters such as the child version of Minato in Naruto Shippuden, Astral from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, Yuichiro Hyakuya in Seraph of the End, and of course, many more. Now onto Kiritsugu's English voice actor in the original Fate Stay Night series, and the movie is Kirk Thornton. He has voiced other characters such as Kisame in Naruto Shippuden, the narrator from Bleach, Klein in Sword Art Online, Shiro Fujimoto from Blue Exorcist, and of course, many more. Kiritsugu's English voice actor in Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works and Fate Zero is Matthew Mercer. He has voiced other characters such as Levi Ackerman in Attack on Titan, Yamato from Naruto Shippuden, Silver Fullbuster in Fairy Tail, and more. Finally, young Kiritsuku's English voice, who was actually voiced by a female actor. That was Marianne Miller. She has voiced other characters such as Yuno Skria in Magical Girl Lyrica Nanoha, Kyosuke Kamijo from Madoka Magica, and just a couple more than that. But before we move on, an interesting fact about his Japanese voice actor, Rikiya Koyama. When he played Kiritsuku in Fate Stay Night, he obviously didn't have many lines, but there was one scene where Kiritsuku was looking up at the night sky and said, "The moon is beautiful tonight," with a sad laugh before, passing away. The staff, was so touched with his performance of the line that they made him do it take after take. Koyama was, happy to do so, but was a bit confused as to why this certain bit of dialogue was so important. This, was only one line in what was a huge production at the time. However, what he didn't know was that this line was very important to the Fate story and would land him the role of Kiritsuku once again in Fate Zero. Kiritsuku lost his mother early on in his life and lived with his father, Norikata Emiya, who was the fourth family head of the Emiyas. His father was also a mage, but rather than living peacefully together, they were on the run from the Mages Association, and Kiritsuku spent his youth running from the association across the globe. They eventually settled on an island called Alimango, and this is where Kiritsuku met Shirley, a local girl and his father's assistant. This girl became his friend. Not only that, but Kiritsuku had a crush on her, even though she was 4 years older than him. As we know from the anime, of course, disaster soon followed as Shirley became a vampire after she drank a potion Noritaka had made to prove that his research could save the world. Kiritsuku was obviously unable to kill her, even though she pleaded for him to do so. He ended up, of course, running away as the pressure became too much. Soon, the entire island was just crammed full of executors from the church, as well as the endorsers from the Mages Association. One of these enforcers was a part-time freelancer called Natalia. She ended up saving Kiritsuku. Kiritsuku, of course, soon made his way back to the Emiya hideout and confronted his father about Shirley's death and the research that he had been doing into vampirism. His father told him that he wanted to become a dead apostle and continue this research, to which Kiritsuku ended up holding his father's escape by killing him. This was, done in two ways. In the manga, just as Noritaka was escaping, Kiritsuku shot him in the back, whereas in the anime, Kiritsuku stabbed his father with a dagger that was given to him by Shirley before eventually pulling the trigger on him using a pistol that he had found in his father's drawer. Natalia knew that the only person that would have been capable of stopping his father from escaping was, unfortunately, Kiritsuku himself. Because of this, she ended up taking a liking to him and took him with her. Natalia trained Kiritsuku, now in his teenage years, not only in magecraft but in tracking, assassination, and how to use various types of weaponry, because he had realized that, the tragedy he was part of was actually happening all over the world and wanted to act as, a hero of justice, though at this point unknowingly. At first, Kiritsuku obviously only ever got in Natalia's way, but did eventually become her partner and equal. On their final mission together, Natalia was on a plane that had been infected by what was known as ghoul bees. What they were doing was they were tracking down and trying to assassinate a man called Odd Borzak, who was researching how to turn people into ghouls using these bees. After deeming the plane too risky to land with the infected people upon it, Kiritsuku took it upon himself to shoot down the plane with Natalia still inside. Sadly, on their last radio call, Kiritsuku actually admitted to Natalia that she was like a mother to him, and it was at this point in his life that he became engulfed by the idea of becoming the hero of justice to stop anything like this happening again. Moving on to around 11 years before the Fourth Grail War took place, Kiritsuku also took on an apprentice. This young woman was a soldier who he eventually named Maya. Just as Natalia trained him, he trained Maya, the same way till she eventually became his assistant on the field. But not only that, she became his lover, and may I add, not romantically, this was in a pure sexual way. Noise. 2 years later, he was hired by the Ainsburn family to act as their representative in an upcoming conflict, which Kiritsuku would learn to be the Fourth Grail War. After learning about the Grail, he believed that it could grant his wish of world peace. Focusing solely on that, he left his work as a hero of justice. Now, of course, it was at this time as well that he met Iris Veil. He actually first met her while she was being created in a tank. Kiritsugu originally questioned this by saying that Irisville was useless because she lacked survival skills or any means of defending herself. Arcte, who was the guy who was creating her, was not happy with this at all and decided to throw Irisville away during a blizzard, mainly just to test her durability. Kiritsugu, however, disgusted and enraged, rushed to save her and took her back to the old von Einsborn castle, where he educated Irisville on how the world works. He did this using movies, pictures, and music. Over time, Irisville obviously started to gain her own personality and show signs of emotion. Naturally, she became interested in Kiritsugu too. Much to his initial hesitation, the two eventually ended up falling in love. And I think they both knew how Kiritsugu felt. He would have had no hesitation in sacrificing her for the Holy Grail, but Irisville still wanted to bear a child for him so that he would have some sort of hope after the Grail War. But thanks for watching. That was my video, 5 facts about Kiritsugu Emiya from the Fate series. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course if you'd like to see more characters from the Fate franchise, let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed the video, as it really does help my videos out in terms of reaching a wider audience, and subscribe for more anime content. Till next time, my fellow weebs, peace!